Obviously cut some costs as well, but I don't think that's going to be that important. But somebody probably in a biggest problem, which is massive cash flow issues, I guess, would you say that that should be the number one focus right now? Just stop everything you're doing, look at where you're spending all that money, and try to stretch that runway as much as you can to
Totally.
survive.
I mean, one, I would have hoped they've done that already, or they might be, because 3 or 4 weeks is like an eternity, when you're burning a lot of cash. But yeah, I think like really the first step was just stepping back and getting like a real picture of where your finances are at. And depending on how the business is going or what category you're in, you're going to have to make some decisions. And I think, I think it's very category dependent. Some of these categories that just aren't, I wouldn't even, obviously the essentials are thriving right now, right? It's better than ever. Then there's sort of that other bucket of like, they're almost like the new essentials that are,
office stuff.
Yeah. And I think those are doing well. Then you've just got certain categories that are just down, right? Like I think apparel and some other things are just trending down because other than athleisure, right, that people are sitting at home all day, you don't necessarily need, there's certain categories you may not need right now. And I think everyone needs to respond to it a little bit differently. I think for categories that are down and it's, no fault of their own, it's just the current, environment, I think they really need to lean heavily into their dedicated customers, right? Like I think it's probably hard and challenging for them to go acquire a lot of new customers right now. And get people to pull the trigger on a new purchase from a brand they may have never heard of when they're just generally not buying in that category at all. But for these brands that have built loyal followings and communities, I think it's a good opportunity to sort of re-engage with your current base. And maybe you're turning your ad spend down on new prospecting a lot, right? Mm-hmm. You're running a little bit leaner. You might see a revenue drop, but hopefully you can make up for that by leaning into your existing customer base.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially because each of these categories, maybe let's just define 3 of these, right? So I think on one side, you've got the essentials, and they've got no problem at all with customer acquisition. I think they've got more supply chain issues.
They're just trying to get as much product as possible.
And they're worried about delivery.
They're fine.
I mean, wasn't Amazon hiring like 100,000 people or something like ridiculous like that? It's so those guys are another level. And then I think you've got the guys in the middle, like what you said, the new essentials. Maybe people selling things are not exactly aligned with what people want, but maybe something similar. And then you've got the segments like travel, which it's just dried up completely. And I think we're going to have to talk about different strategies for each of these. But maybe let's just focus on that middle one for a second there. I'm totally with you on them going back to the existing customers, right? Have you seen, is there anything else that in terms of the thought process? Like, so for instance, I've seen examples of brands that have had to reinvent themselves a little bit. So maybe come up with sort of different products than what they normally do just to make ends meet and keep that cash flow going. Is that something which, you guys have looked at all, or, something you'd suggest to others?
Totally. We haven't looked at it specifically. And fortunately, I think we're sort of in a category that is not an essential, but it's a growing, I think the 3 brands that I'm a co-founder on, they're all sort of beauty adjacent. Mm-hmm. And luckily, as far as we've seen, those are growing categories right now. And I think when you look at like your current customer base, and then when you look at that middle bucket you're talking about, there is an opportunity to acquire new customers. Because of what's happened, when you look at like these 3 buckets, you've got the bucket of people that are in essentials they can't keep up. They just need more. They need inventory as quick as they can, right? They're doing fine. Then you've got the other end of the spectrum, travel, so entertainment, movie studios, theaters, TV. They literally can't. They're sort of paralyzed right now. Like movies are paralyzed, right? They can't spend it all. So you've got probably 30% of the market that had to pull their ad spend from Facebook or YouTube or Google or any of the larger platforms, right? So then what's happened is, and it's super unfortunate because there's obviously massive industries that are stuck and out of business right now.
Yeah.
Right, but from an ecom perspective, just from a business perspective, that what that's done is it's dropped the CPM
CPCs.
on Facebook, and so it's you're getting a lot more bang for your buck. And when you compound that with all of the people that are staying at home and consuming content, there's this over supply right now of ad inventory on these platforms, and so you should be leaning heavy into prospecting if you can back into the numbers and make it work. But at least I think from what we've seen and the other founders I've talked to in the e-com space, for the ones that really have their like funnel down when it comes to digital marketing,
Mm-hmm.
it's going, fortunately really well right now for them.